What's going on, everybody? Turns out my mic didn't have batteries in it. I thought it seemed light. How's everybody doing this evening? We are back at it with another episode of Hobby Pants. Really excited to be here. Solo once again, so it might be a little less chatter than when we have a producer online, but let's face it, we're here to paint. And I have you guys to keep me company. So let's make sure chat tonight is nice and active. I'm gonna be tracking it the whole time. Ask me your questions, give me your ideas, share with me your stories. I'd love to have all of that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining us. As you might be able to tell, we do have a different setup for our camera this evening, trying out different angles, seeing if we can get maybe a little crisper image. Camera was directly overhead looking down. That created some problems with the depth of field, the model leaving the table much more frequently than I cared for it to. So, well, we've got it set up here from the side. So let me know what you guys think of that, and we can go ahead and kick this thing off. Of course, big thank you to our sponsors, Artis Opus, of course, Game Envy, Spray Gunner, and of course, Two Thin Coats in the house this evening. What's going on, William Payne? How are you? Proto J in here as well. I might see Proto J tomorrow for lunch. I don't know. Is that could be the case? Let me know in the chat here. Would definitely hope so. William Payne doing good, working on some witches. Very nice. Get those Dracari nice and ready. Rumor has it that you got a little glow up coming for Dracari here very, very soon. So let's go ahead and get this party started. Now we know we've been working on this Frost Giant for Battle to End Alzheimerers. Let's show you where we left off. Last episode, we started working out these leathers. So in the meantime, I have started getting the leathers wrapped up to a point that I can be happy with. Let's see if we can get a good focus on here so you can see what we're working with. Keeping with the illustrative style, kind of some chunky blends. We've got little bits and scratches and stuff worked into the leathers to give it a little bit of extra texture. Again, kind of illustrative or cartoony. That is quite all right. Let's dial this focus in right here. Still think it looks pretty sharp. One of the things we're going to be doing tonight, adding a filter to it. And that's going to give us a little bit more color depth, add to the volumetrics again, and kind of help us overwrite some of the places that we're getting, you know, kind of those chunky blends to it. So, you know, definitely think the colors work very well. I definitely like the reddish tones within the browns. I think it plays very well off of the blues. So we're gonna go ahead and get this going. First up tonight. So we've got leathers done. You see, I started working on some flesh tones. I'm not sure I'm ready to tackle those guys yet. So I think that what we're gonna focus on are some of the other details, the rope work, all of these little pieces up in here, in and around the belly, and then of course, those filters like we discussed. And I think, why don't we go ahead and start with those filters? I think that sounds like a plan. So we pre-shaded with Leviathan Purple. All right, we did all of the browns with this nice Leviathan Purple. It gives us a nice rich purple color. You still see a lot of that in places that haven't yet been painted. Maybe we'll do the wood and the straps and everything tonight as well. But that being the case, being that that color exists, I think we're gonna rock that as our filter for adding additional shadow value. Let's just check all of our tools. Looks like the brush is in good shape where we left it last time. We might have to tinker with it a little bit to get the spray right, but that's just air brushes for you. And we're gonna do like we did last week. I'm gonna get rid of this ugly mug here in a moment, open up the full screen of the project that we're working on. I feel like that's more so what you're here to see than this old guy flapping his gums. Definitely could have used a haircut, used a beard trim, but I figured Frost Giant, Old Man Winter Face, they just kind of go together. So we have a poll up on YouTube right now. You know that Emperor's Children comes out this weekend. A couple of guys in the club did pre-order those boxes to make sure we had them for stream. So I know that that is one of them that is currently leading. on the pole. It is right now 50-50 split between doing some Emperor's Children paint jobs or a shellaxy model. If there is something specific that you'd like to see off of that pole, definitely make sure you get the votes on it. Oh, so I've got more hands in with the new camera location. That's fun. But definitely let us know what you would like to see, and we'll make that happen. So I'm going to thin this down quite a bit, but I'm also going to go ahead and add just a little bit of this satin to it, just add a little bit more body back. That's a satin varnish. You could use a glaze medium, you could use like a lamian or acrylic medium. I'm going to use what I've got on hand here, and I'm just fine with that. So we'll take one of our junk brushes, use that to mix. Then we're going to go ahead and grab something here to test our spray before we start hitting the model with it. Let's first of all see just a little bit in the cup. How is it spraying currently? All right, looks like we did leave the brush in good condition last time. How out of character for me. For sure, I imagine that's for those lunch plans. That is awesome. That is awesome. So we're just gonna go nice and slow. We want nice transparency, and we're just gonna bake these into the shadows here. So maybe we can get zoomed in on that and get a little closer shot of it. Let's see. Well, a little closer. So I'm going to come at the areas here, say across these ropes. We're just going to drop a little of that purple into there. Maybe a little bit more than we wanted to, but that's where we start off in a spot. That doesn't matter as much. Again, our goal here is to add dimension to our shadows. Let's see if we can do something about this. Adjust this air pressure just a little bit. Okay, speckling there. Still getting just a touch of speckling. Now this is quite thin in here, so we do have to have a little bit more air pressure than we would normally use. And we're gonna have certain places where this purple might actually interact with some of the blues, and that'll be okay. So let's just get the flap right in here where that overlaps, the belly overlaps it just a touch. Get behind that bell. Both sides of these ankles. Again, trying to focus in on the places that are going to have more shadows in them. Around the ropes. And again, we're not putting much on here at all. We're not putting much on here at all. How's that focus? Let's see if we can get that a little bit cleaner. All right. What's going on, Luke? How are you? So let's get up under here. We got a good shot on that. Looks like we do right here where these two flaps overlap. Airbrush is making me nervous here. I'm not doing exactly what I wanted to do. But you'll find when you just barely pull back on the trigger, a lot of times it's nice to have, like this paper towel right here, I can open it up on this paper towel and make sure I've got my paint moving. That's gonna help keep it from, kind of drying there on the tip and keep the paint spraying. So a lot of this when you wanna get really, really close for, to make sure we get control on it. And the big goal, again, we want depth. We want these leather panels that are here, we want them to make it look like they're a little bit further apart. Just doing layer painting can lead to like kind of flat looking surfaces. And we want this, we want these volumes. And again, this is the same Leviathan purple that we used as kind of our base coat to get our shadows in initially. Again, open it up on a paper towel. Yep, it's working out pretty well. This is also helping warm this brown up just a little bit as well. With the layering process, those browns with lighter browns and lighter browns did get a bit desaturated. So this is gonna add a little bit more saturation and vibrancy back to it at the same time. Again, we wanna double up our efforts. If we're painting shadows, and we can add vibrancy in doing so, it's kind of a nice twofer. Who is ready for those Emperor's Children this weekend? Anybody here in chat gonna be putting those together and getting that army started? Now you see I've got kind of two colors of leather, the idea being that one is the inside, the other being the outside. So we've got, the stuff where the leather kind of folds over on top. That's kind of revealing the back part of it. We're not getting much purple on there to start with. We're gonna make a decision on that in a few moments as to whether that will be the right thing to do or not. And we're going to start on the undercarriage, right? And by that I mean back here. You can kind of see the existence of the lighter leather in the back. We're gonna use that as a testing ground. And with this, we're gonna see a little bit of overlap on the blue in that crotch area that's very, very dark anyway. Actually, it seems like this image is a little bit dark. Maybe I can tweak the lights a little bit here. So we'll go ahead and get in here. I basically want to see how it's going to overlap that. It's not bad. It's not bad. I could have done a little bit less on it, but the base on it's going to make it kind of hard for you guys to see as well. Come up around the shoulders up here, where we've got that fur on top of it. Gonna get up underneath there with just a little bit of purple as well. the underside of that arm there, adding just a little bit extra. And we'll come back and we'll dial in the camera and kind of show you in case you can't really see it here. It is very, very subtle. So I don't imagine the camera is going to capture it very well at this distance. And we're doing this before we block in some of those other details. It allows me to take right over, say like this portion right here, completely unpainted. It allows me to kind of push colors in there. What's going on, homie? Little surprise visit from Luke. Everybody say what's up to Luke. Ah, you got your way dark back there.
Yeah.
Well, so it looks like we do have ourselves a producer this evening, at least for a little bit. Thanks for coming in, man. Yeah, well, I got a chat over in front of me. You've got a chat over there, too. I figure we can both just kind of hang out. Oh, we got a little speckly right there. That's okay. All right, so let's have a look here at what we've got accomplished with those filters. See, again, very subtle. It just makes the top portions darker. The overlapping portions are a little bit darker as well, but it's not a boring dark. We come back down to those legs, that purple's a little bit more prominent, but the shadows are a little bit more relevant down there as well. It really helps to smooth out those blends when you start to incorporate slight color variations to your work. So let's see if we can show you guys some of it spraying. Let's go ahead and also, Luke, if you don't mind, go ahead and knock the visibility icon off of this face camera right there.
Talking head, boom.
Talking head, there we go. All right, so when we look at this part right here, you see how it's really dark on the belly in there too? That's a spot that purple's gonna be okay to hit. That purple is going to overlap the blue pretty nicely. See, I got this new camera angle, Luke. It's a little bit harder to see, I think. I'm curious how the video looks on your end, this camera angle versus last week's camera angle. Do you find this a little bit more challenging to see? We're going to take a little bit of that purple and hit a couple of these blue spots as well on purpose. All right, and then let's, like normal, junk brush, massage the tip. Curse Cowboy's ready for those Emperor's Children. Okay, just right under that belly here. See if we can get that visible.
We just need to put the camera on your head. That will get the angle just perfect every time.
Let's get inside these knees here. Might even try an autofocus here in a moment too. Appreciate you guys hanging out while we also try and maximize the equipment here. Another spot that'll really benefit from it are the bottoms of these kneecaps. got away from me just a little bit. We can knock it down a little bit and that'll be fine. Let's go ahead and continue with places like inside of these armpits. Find the right angle to hold it. Someone has to rep Slanesh, huh?
Rob is too Nurgle. That is true. So you've asked Chad how they like the angle. Let's ask you. How do you feel painting with the camera there versus above it?
It's definitely going to take a little bit of getting used to. I'm used to seeing a different thing on the screen when I look up to reference where the model's at. So the model location is going to be a little bit challenging as we get used to it. But if it doesn't add value, well, we might just try another angle for the next stream until we get it fully dialed in. I've been watching a lot of, I can't even really call them my contemporaries because they've been at it so long that I'm not a peer by any means. But a lot of the other content creators that I'm watching that are making art videos, they've got, I noticed that most of their cameras were kind of off to the side rather than directly overhead. And, you know, guys like Miniac or, you know, I even watched Glacial Geek. I don't know if you guys know Glacial Geek. I hope so. He's a good friend of ours here in the studio. You know, I got to see a little bit inside of his studio and how he runs his stuff as well.
Oh, nice.
So I figure we're just going to try and, you know, replicate what we've seen work for others. And it takes some tinkering and some tweaking. I do think the purple on the blue here is adding some nice volumetrics for sure. Giving, again, just a little bit more depth of color to the piece that we're working on here. And since purple's our shadow color, you know, it's kind of nice to have it, especially the way it does overlap this blue. It definitely reads much more blue than it does purple. But it also does provide a modicum of warmth. Again, just trying to be really patient because, you know, a blowout with this purple on top of these really light colors is not going to have a very nice effect. So we just want to make sure that we've got something nice and subtle. We got to be patient with it. If it means we have to make a few passes, well, then that's what it means. Okay, so let's just double check our leathers, make sure we've got shadows in where we want them. Little pulses on it a lot of times work better than trying to keep a specific stream, especially when we're dealing with something so delicate.
I'm sure you've already said it. Which purple are you using right now?
Come again?
Which purple are you using?
This is the Leviathan. Same color, the same color that we used to base that brown in. Kind of a variant on the idea of a mother color. In fine art painting, a mother color is a color that's basically mixed into just about everything that you're doing. And in doing so, it gives kind of a baseline for all of those colors. That hue is baked in there, and so it just kind of works. Now we're doing a similar thing, but rather than doing a bunch of color mixing for that, what we're doing instead is, you know, kind of sandwiching the two of them in. The bottom layer and the top layer are going to have elements of those colors, and using a filter for the top layer means we're still maintaining a lot of the values that are underneath it. So that kind of just marries the two of them. But I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. It definitely has smoothed out a lot. Now, one of the things that is definitely going to be needed in order to really get this where it needs to be is a finish. Right now, the finish is a bit mottled. You know, some varying stages of satin. So, you know, once we unify that with a nice matte finish, it'll really show off a lot more of those cracks. So let's see what we can do here to show off some of the things that we've done. Okay, so you can see the purple in there, kind of defining that calf a bit better. Those leathers, again, not much purple at all. This, we've enhanced the shadows in between the leather panels. Yeah, Phil is a great guy indeed. He's actually our very first guest on the stream. And, you know, he's recently had a move, taking him a little bit further from us. But once he gets all settled in that, we're gonna be looking to get him back on the stream once again.
You still got manual focus on.
Yep, let's look at the back of that. Oh, here we are right here. Let's go see if we can get autofocus to help us out.
That's a little better.
Okay, let's give her another little wash here. What's going on, Moonlit Inari? How are you? Definitely glad to see everybody here. Pretty excited to say that we've put on about 150 subs since the last time you guys saw us.
Oh, wow.
Of course, big thank you to all of you guys sharing the content, telling your friends. You know, much appreciated, for sure. Still a long way to go, but I'm going to celebrate every sub.
That's a good question, Curse Cowboy.
How do you keep track of ratio and mix colors over multiple days? How do you remember the mix? I try and do, so I am known for being one that doesn't do a bunch of mixing. I don't, again, typically army paint, and typically army painting is kind of an organic process that continues over the course of months and months and months. New models come out, you add them to your range. So in situations like that, I try not to color mix. I try to use colors that just work, so that way I don't have to worry about those ratios when I come back to them. This being a one-off, what I've done is I've focused all of the things that are going to require color mixing. You can see a good bit of mess right here from various colors on all those leathers. Well, I use that, you know, to make sure that I get it all done in one go, so that way I don't have to come back and revisit. But even then, I try to do something, you know, kind of straightforward. This, for example, this has got a 3-color scheme, base color, mid-tone, highlight, and we've just basically done kind of 50-50 mixes between them. So should be easy enough to replicate if we needed to later, but that's just kind of how I do. All right, we need to bring, now that we've done that, we're gonna do one more pass for some highlights. Go ahead and flip this around to get ourselves a little cleaner palette spot. So this is just, this is pale skin we're using right here, 2 thin coats. And we're gonna just pick the most important edge highlights and execute them. Make sure we've got good flow on the paint. Now, most of the places that purple hasn't hit don't really matter much, but the areas that we've added additional shadow, we want to make it more punchy by just increasing the highlight directly adjacent to it. So that's where, oh, a little bit too much paint on the brush there. Quick little Control Z, let that dry down, and we'll come back to that particular edge.
Yeah, Moonlit has a nice little idea here. When he figures out a mix, he just makes a bottle of it.
That way he's got it on hand.
That's not a bad idea either, especially if you're doing it for army painting, where you are going to have a bunch of models. For something like a one-off, you know, paint is so precious.
Yeah.
That you definitely don't want to waste paint when you can avoid it.
But like on his, it's for a whole Drakari army.
Right.
Makes sense.
This, I can tell you that over the past couple days of getting this leather done, just a little bits at a time, this damn weapon of his has been the bane of my existence, finding the right angle to paint around it. So with our dry brush, we're going to be taking the side of those bristles and using that along the sharp edges. We're only going to use the tip of the brush if we absolutely have to. That's going to give us a lot more control and a lot more consistent line weights. Let's go ahead and just, this seems like a good spot that would catch some light. Check it. Okay, not too shabby. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty solid. And that airbrush was not spraying perfectly, so we do have a couple of places here and there with a little bit of speckling and overspray. But by the time we've got all these details painted on here, I think that most of those imperfections are going to fade into obscurity. So I'm not going to sit around and beat myself up over, you know, little imperfections here and there. Now, what I determined last time, Luke, watching the video with the producer, is that when we've got both of these mics on side by side, there's a fair amount of background noise that picks up. So what we're going to do is for you, obviously feel free to mute at any time to say anything that you like, but in between those times, if you don't mind, we'll keep it muted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's feeling pretty good. Feeling very leathery, very kind of worn. You have to imagine this guy probably doesn't spend a whole lot of time laundering his loincloth. So you want that leather to be nice and aged. And before this step, those layers, you know, well, they felt very, very clean. And we might get froggy and do something like a green oil wash into some of the leathers to represent like where a little algae might have picked up on it. But that'll be kind of during the finish process. Once we've got all of the data here, once we know what all of our colors are on the model, then we can kind of determine what's going to add value. And the bone tone. I didn't read enough to see what context that has for it, but I figured even that quote in itself was something that I wanted to read aloud. And just check that line weight on our hand. So a lot of this is hiding behind the base. Let's see if we can get another angle on it to make it a little bit better. Yeah, so my initial take is I think the overhead camera does produce a better read of what's actually going on in the model, but just maybe a little harder to keep it in frame. Whereas this, the angle we've got, we're coming at it from, now I've got a lot of stuff being blocked like by this giant base and whatnot. It's going to be a lot less of an interference when we're working on something that might have a paint handle on it, for example.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you're staying in frame a lot better for sure.
And I think it's a little bit more comfortable of a place as well. Let's highlight some of these little stitches too.
Now, what's going on, Treachery? Yes,
What's
we've
up,
all
Treachery?
missed this.
I'm happy to be back doing it, guys. I really, really, truly am. You guys know me well enough. No, I like 40K. You know, but I like 40K adjacent stuff better than the gameplay. Right? I like the community. I like the art exploits. Edge highlights is one of those processes that you feel like you could just do forever, right? Which is probably why it's one of my least favorite techniques to employ while painting.
Because it takes forever.
Yeah, it takes forever, you know, and when you're dealing with a bunch of models like army painting, like sometimes you just don't have time to do all of that. You know, but if I just painted the same way that I paint everything all the time on stream, well, that doesn't give me much of an opportunity to grow as a painter either. So, do things I'm not good at or not practiced with, get practiced with them, get good with them. That's how we'll grow. Remember, I am competing in paint, right? But I'm competing with myself. I'm competing with my last project. And it's real easy to get lost in the sauce on hundreds of models and not be painting competitively anymore, not challenging myself. So I low-key hate it, but I'm also happy to do it. You know what I mean? I'm also excited for the aftermath of this, where I can take and put that new feather in my cap of a thing that I'm good at. You collect those things one at a time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, and competing with yourself's the best way to look at art anyways. It's all about yourself and your perspective anyways.
100%. 100%. Right, I can look at a bunch of other artists' work and be absolutely mind blown by it. But if I start comparing what they're doing to what I'm doing, then I could also potentially get discouraged. You know, it might feel like getting to that point is a bridge too far. And it just takes a couple steps, you know? A couple steps at a time, slowly working towards that goal of self-improvement. Right? I don't feel like this is focusing very well, Luke.
The autofocus. You want to take a quick break real quick? I want you to show me if this is about to die.
What do we got here?
You see all the lights?
Yes, but it should be hardwired into power, and it is. Matter of fact, there's not a battery in it at all, so
All right.
if we weren't getting power, it actually wouldn't show up at all.
Well, you know.
But now I've stood up, I'm going to stretch it out real quick. We're going to look at this from a distance and then kind of pick what the next thing we're going to get into, if you want to take a look at it, Luke.
Man, these leathers are crazy.
I wasn't terribly happy with them when we left off last week. So, you know, I went through a lot of redid just about all of it, and just really, rather than rushing to get something finished, you know, I took the free time that I had, and I you know, kind of slowly ventured through it.
And you added all the little battle damage yourself, or was that already kind of in the model itself?
No, we added those scratches, and that was a pretty cool little trick. I took my darkest brown, watered it down really well, did as thin of a line as I could possibly do, and then followed that up with my highlight color in as thin of a line as I could possibly do, and I oriented the light line beneath the dark line wherever possible. The idea being that as light hits it, that bottom piece of the scratch is what's going to catch the light, and it's going to be, you know, I feel like it gave it some pretty nice depth. Definitely in the illustrative world, you know, cartoony, if you will. But that's kind of our theme here. We're going to get into some realism, I think, when we do the base. And what I was thinking, guys, is we talk about challenging ourselves. We talk about challenging ourselves. We talk about learning new things, practicing new skill sets. One of those, outside of paint, is video production in general. And I know a lot of people don't have 3 hours to sit around while I ramble on painting a model. And so I think what we're gonna try and do is do our first pre-recorded art video for the basing of it, shooting for that 15, 20 minute sort of range, and give me an opportunity to get practice on getting the shots that I need, you know, scripting the video, you know, getting the editing done. You know, it's something that's intimidated me for a while, and sometimes you just got to take those things that intimidate you and you just punch them right in the esophagus. It definitely reads pretty good from arm's reach, though, for sure.
It does.
The two guys in his hand is just hilarious, though.
Yeah, I love it, but God, it's going to be a pain in the butt to paint those guys.
I can see it.
Is a super, super cool detail. Again, 40K players, I hate to tell you, but Sigmar's crushing us on model sculpts. The model sculpts are something very, very special. All right, well, let's see what's next. I feel like let's go with something easy. There's not a bunch of strappy bits. These big obvious strappy bits, we want to get some color into them. Now, this is the Battle to End Alzheimer's. The Battle Against Breast Cancer is another charity we like to contribute to. So I think let's do some strappy wrappings purple. Right, we've got a base on there. I can just layer in some other purples to give it some nice depth and dimension. But I think what I want to do first is some of the bulk stuff. We've got a lot of metallic stuff that's transacting right here. We can go over that at one time. We want to do a nice patina on the bell, like a nice little bronze with some verdigris. So I think that we will start there. Oh goodness, I missed a whole piece of leather. Let's do that piece of leather real quick, Luke. You guys can see what my process has been this week for it. Like everything else, it gets started with that darkest color. This is, once again, 2 thin coats Amphora red.
At least you have the palette still set up.
Mm-hmm. And we're just going to block all of that in real quick. You know, a part of me wants to do those ropes too, but I also don't want too much of the same colors. So let's just start here. Just right along that belly. So we want to make sure that we're keeping it off the blue. Nice coverage on it, but likely going to take 2 thin coats to cover it. See what I did there? Yeah, I have Moonlit Inari says models are better, but he likes the game of 40K better, comparing the 2 games. I have not had an opportunity to play Sigmar, even though we've had a lot of people actually on stream kind of requesting that we stream a little Sigmar. I feel like I've got the bandwidth for one large-scale miniatures game. You know, we've talked about it in the past, but we've started assembling Marvel Crisis Protocol for smaller scale skirmish to kind of mix it up a little bit. And that's just, you know, a lot goes into 40K. A lot goes into Sigmar. You know, the painting task alone is massive, but the number of armies, the number of rule interactions, all of that shoots way up too when you deal with those larger scale games. So Sigmar might be one that stays a mystery for me forever in terms of how it plays, but that's okay. That's by design. Okay, we need to get into our mid-tone now. Our mid-tone being fur cloak. We're gonna go ahead and just get some fresh paint on the palette for all of these colors. Our highlight for the normal leather is this Aries Flesh. Come on, camera, there we go, Aries Flesh. But for the underside, that's a much lighter leather. We push that highlight one step further with the pale skin. Uh-oh. What's going on, man?
It's like it's Christmas.
Yeah, we got the, looks like we had that Champions of Celeste show up in the shop today. We're looking forward to getting those open this weekend. Man, look at this box. Look at this box, guys. Let's go back to that talking head.
All right.
Where's my mouse?
The artwork on it is incredible. Look at that. It's a heavy boy, too.
Yeah.
Perfect, dude. I'm so stoked for that. 3 of them.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Guys, we have 3 left in shop that are unspoken for as of right now. I can't imagine they're still going to be unspoken for by this weekend when it releases. So if you've yet to get your hands on a copy and you want to secure one, let us know. Up here at Counterspell Games, you know, they're going to give you a little discount for being part of the Hobby Goblin audience as well. Okay, so we're going to take our mid-tone here. Because it's a lighter one, we're going to take that fur cloak, and we're going to take just a little bit of that Aries Flesh. We're going to kind of mix them. And we're going to just kind of jump from that Amphora red directly up to this lighter color. And we're just going to do a bunch of little lines like we do. It should look pretty sloppy right now. Now my paint's a little thinner than I want it, so you might be able to see it kind of deposits little droplets at the end of where I pick my brush up. But the most important for the texture and consistency of the paint, of course, is going to be that brightest color. But we're just doing this to avoid having flat paint. We want to get a little bit of texture in here. And this is such a tiny little piece of leather. There's not a whole lot of room to do a whole lot of creative stuff on it. So we'll just use our paint application as the way that we determine that. I've got a little bit of that paint in my brush. I'm grabbing just the edge of this pale skin. That way that little bit of color in my brush mixes a little bit, but not much. And I'm going to just grab quick, chunky kind of edge highlights here to make sure we've got all of our edges well defined. Yep. Looks like I have a little ball forming on the end of my brush. Let's get rid of that so that way we can get our nice thin lines back. Let's see if we can get it to focus in. Autofocus, come in. Come on, do it up. Oh, take your time. We got there. Then we're going to go ahead and just paint the top of it. It should be the lightest right there at the very top of it. So running the line across it is going to close that gap for us. It does take so long. Yeah, I probably should have taken a bit more time to tweak the camera and test the camera. That's on me. Let's see, we've got a rogue hair kind of hanging out right here. Let's see if we can excavate that.
As far as testing the camera, I mean, you have to be in here doing this to get a good test.
Well, and like our paint jobs, like nothing's going to be perfect off of the rip. There's certain amounts of trial and error, and certain amounts of like just kind of being patient, learning as we go. Let's go ahead and see about glazing a little bit of shadow back into it. So I'm thinning down some of that amphora red, the darkest. We're going to take, what do we got here? How would you paint something to denote it as bone and not pale stone? I'm trying a few things out and not thrilled with most of them. All the weapons for my Eldar are made of bone. Well, that's a great question, right? And there's multiple ways to go about it. I tend to like to employ this same general tactic that I'm using here with the, creating small lines to give texture to it. And that plays very well for bone. If you run the length of the model with just very pale lines that kind of stack up and create that kind of texture, that can do a nice job of it. But painting bones and stuff can be pretty challenging. I won't lie to you. Painting bones to make it look like bones. All right, we're gonna go back off of this manual, or back onto manual focus and try and rock that better, because I feel like every time I look up, we're pretty out of focus.
That's usually when you're repositioning.
Husky Golden Retriever mix.
Well, that man definitely understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Definitely does. Okay, we're gonna let that sit there and marinate for a little bit. There's gonna be a couple little tweaks that we're gonna want to put on it. Maybe do one more pass with the pale. Go, and that gives nice little texture in there, matching up the rest of the leather. So I'd say that's pretty good for now. So we got to start blocking in other details. We need a fur color. We've already used brown a ton on it, so I don't know that brown is going to be the move. I'm in good shape, man. Thank you very much. And as we go, I'm sure I'm going to find other spots that I'm going to look at and say, hey, that edge highlight was missed or needs to be reinforced. And so that's probably going to be a running theme for the night here. Nigh impossible. All right, let's do something fun. Let's do a little patina on, or get our verdigris going. Oh, what do we got here? Cursed blue. Needs a little bit of a shake. This is a nice teal color. We're going to be using a mix of this teal and a mix of this turquoise. And we're just going to paint that bell up front. Like that still needs a good shake. That feels thin. Gotta put some muscle in it. What about wolf gray fur? Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good call. All right, that seems thin. Let's see how it does for coverage. Looks like it'll be good enough. And we're just gonna paint this thing. Just gonna get this color baked onto that whole bell here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at other parts of the model that may also benefit from a bronze with a verdigris. And we're gonna go ahead and work that in as well. This step is nice and easy. We get to be, you know, broad, clumsy strokes here just to get it done. We get a little bit on something we don't want it on, we just catch it quick. Wet brush, fully saturate it, dry the brush, soak it back up. Works pretty well for removing those small errors. To get good coverage on it. But again, we don't have to be too particular about it. So it looks like when I did the satin coat to protect it prior, looks like that satin built up pretty thick on the bottom of this bell, so you can kind of see how the paint is beading up and not adhering very well. So we're going to let that sit for a moment, let that paint I just put on there dry. That'll give it a little bit more texture. Let's find other turquoise things or other bronzing things. I think this will look pretty cool, bronze. So let's do this arm panel right here, bronze. And we're going to do a mixture of different metals on here. That way we can play around with some rust effects. Get the verdigris, just have multiple options. What's going on, Ms. Natalie Hill? How are you? Ms. Natalie Hill got a little secret advance. notice of something coming in the future. Not immediately, but maybe by summer or the end of summer, we will be opening up Hobby Gob Academy, the Gob Ross Academy, where we're going to offer kind of one-on-one hobby sessions where we get to sit down with you, crank up the camera, so we got a good screen share, and paint with you in real time. That way, if there's something that you want to try, I can monitor what it is that you're doing and give you feedback on it. Or I can, crank the camera on and give you a demonstration on how I might go about doing it. And, really cater a curriculum specific to the goals of each individual person. So if you feel like that is something that might be of interest to you, just kind of take a mental note of it and look out for a more official announcement once we've got all of the details worked out. A few things I like better than sitting around spending time with a fellow artist and just sharing, kind of tricks and ideas and techniques, having discussions about color theory. I'm a real nerd for that kind of stuff. Those are a couple of cool spots. I feel like let's do bronze under these bones too.
Chris Cowboy had a question a little bit ago. He said, at what point do you feel you have too much blue and may clash with the skin tone?
Well, this blue that we're painting now is going to be almost completely overwritten once we get the bronze on here. What we want is if the bronze is pitted, right, if the metal itself is pitted, then we want to see hints of the turquoise in the recesses, right? And that's that verdigris that we're talking about. So ideally, that bronze is going to be much more warm. And right now we've got strong warm and strong cool. And so this is going to be a good opportunity to kind of meld the two of those together with a subtle cool in the verdigris and a subtle warm in the bronze without, just duplicating the same colors. Because if I was painting those colors just to be those colors, that's bad color theory. Right? There's not enough distance between the blue I'm currently painting and, like you said, that blue skin tone. You'll see more about that in a few minutes once we actually pull the metallics out.
And what's going on, Steven Strayed? Appreciate the feedback on the mic.
What do you say?
He said the mic sounds pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, he came in here. Turns out the mic was a little janky on the other OBS setup. But I set this up on the Hobby Goblins stream OBS. So I'm actually not even using the one he messed with the other night just because I knew that this one was going to be solid enough, and frankly, I didn't allow myself enough time to make the changes that I needed. So definitely appreciate that. How is the camera looking, Steve? The new location, I might need to look at, better means of getting the focus dialed in, or, maybe the ISO might need to be adjusted because the light is very different where it's hitting now. How does it look on the user end of YouTube there? It always looks a little bit worse on the screen that we watch from. While we're live, that is. What's going on, Dean P? How are you, brother? Now, if you can tell, these are kind of metal plates that are holding those bones up. There are two schools of thought, right? One school says paint the deepest details first. That way, each additional stage gets you closer and closer to the surface of the model. If we were to follow that train of thought, then we would be painting the bones first, then the fur, then this. Now, I'm currently painting from the school of thought that says, what is the easiest color to fix later on? And I believe that to be this bronze thing that we're going to be doing here. If we have any mess ups painting the next layers, I think being able to come back and reapply this where we need it will be easier. More effective, therefore more efficient. I think the cam is looking good. IMO, I like the new angle. I think it shows off the model a bit more as you're working on it. That's awesome. That is awesome. You know, obviously the question is, do we do, you know, the left side here that's not my dominant hand painting and then kind of turn it to where we can get those angles, or do we try and get the camera from the dominant side? I think that we're probably better on this side, for sure.
Where's that?
Yeah. This is a nice color here for sure. Definitely like it. Fair number of scratches and stuff sculpted into some of these metal panels, and that's going to work really well with the next step.
Have a good night, Chris.
Great to see you, Cece. Thanks for stopping by. These big models as well, you also have to find the right spots to kind of stabilize your hand against the model. That can be a pretty unique challenge with these bigger models. Okay, I think those can all be base metallics. That looks like a headboard. I mean, God, there's you see this here? Just like a tiny little horseshoe, right? Or like right here, a tiny little lock with a key sticking out of it. The detail on these is insane. Okay, but I don't think there's a whole lot more. I don't think there's a whole lot more to do with that color for now. So let's go ahead and grab our turquoise in here. All right, let's make sure we get it loose enough. Because what we're going to do with this is we're just going to take and find the spots that are facing up and kind of give ourselves a little two-tone for the verdigris. So again, very kind of sloppy here. The distance between the paints is not too huge, right? So I don't need to worry about blending much. They already blend fairly well together. It allows us to have kind of a shadow consideration even on the verdigris itself. So just quickly slapping it in here. This is a caveman painting. Truthfully, my favorite way to paint. Quick and messy, and then hide it with techniques later. Counterspell's out there cooking tonight. Got the release of a new Star Wars card game or a new expansion for it. How many of you guys in chat play some card games? I had somebody show me around Magic a couple weeks ago, and I said, nope, not for me. Okay, so we've got, do we have all of the potential bronze with that two-tone? I think we do. Let's let that dry down a moment. We've got fur we got to figure out. The ropes are going to be a real pain in my butt, guys. Real pain.
That is a lot of ropes, actually.
So many. And we're gonna have to do every single, every single kind of like little like strand of it as we go around it to really.
Chain, rope.
Yeah, I think I told you guys I went to pick the simplest one of them to assemble it, and then I followed the wrong instructions. And I realized as I started putting on like a fistful of dudes, that's gonna be a pain to paint. I was like, whoops, right? The big mallet, like all the little roping, binding stuff. I was like, okay, well we're in it now. What's going on, Adrian? Great to see you, man. Got Shoelace in here as well. Got to see Shoelace this weekend. Great to see you. Yeah, no, Jason, I know you did some magic back in the day, homie. I know you did, because you got me into it. It was your fault. I mean, the Star Wars card game looks pretty cool. For whatever reason, my YouTube algorithm and my Facebook algorithm has just been showing me pack openings of Pokemon cards, right? Never did I search for anything, but I've been just seeing Pokemon cards and everything all throughout those reels. And I know that like me and Nick, one of the owners up here at Counterspell Games, we're talking about like, maybe me helping them get some pack opening off the ground, getting their equipment set up to do some of those videos. And I'm certain that just that conversation with him, populated my algorithm with that stuff. Oh, so yeah. You guys just in everyday life, just start talking about how cool hobby goblins are using real words, and maybe that'll infect other people's YouTubes.
It's amazing how Facebook and all those do that stuff to you.
Yeah, they, it's kind of scary. But at the same time, you know. So I think we're going to go yellow base for the bones on the top here. Yellow base up into our off-whites. Again, just thinking ahead, thinking about warmth. Okay, I have decided I do want to do the blade hanging from his waist as something a little different than the other stuff. There's going to be plenty of metallics there to be able to play around with rust and stuff. So let's just get this guy keyed in for bronze as well. The bronzing over top of the patina is also going to be a little bit messier. So what we'll probably do is get all the bronze done before we start on the actual silvery stuff. That way any paint that we get on there, we can just overwrite. We need a Wolfie VGC moment for 40K. Forgive me, what is a VGC moment? I'm an old man. I don't know all the lingo of the kids these days. One of those things we're going to find out together here doing this too is, did we get much value out of using the turquoise and the teal together? Or is it not really going to be impactful enough? Worst case scenario, it's not very impactful, and we spent a little extra time on it, but we haven't really spent a bunch of extra time, so even if it doesn't work out, it is worth the experiment. What do we got here? Played Magic way back, only kept some of my commander decks. Yeah, back when I played, there was no such thing as a commander deck. So that'll kind of age that for me. The other question that we're going to have to resolve here is the wood.
VGC's competitive Pokemon and Wolfie VGC.
His speech after winning was pretty hype. So what do you think? You think that we should call upon 40K tournament winners to make speeches? That could be pretty interesting. All right, we need to find a piece of foam. One of the non-conventional brushes. Just a really cheap brush. And it's got a little alligator clip on it. This is the same type of foam you're going to have in your battle case, your battle foam case. It's got a nice density to it. Apparently it's got a lot of static electricity to it too when you're wearing these gloves. Get it in there and just pull from the top and the sides a little bit. We want something very small. Wood feels like birch, right? It's got that birch sort of density. Yeah, I mean, possibly. All right, copper. Bitso tin. Find a good bronze. Chaos bronze. I mean, that sounds pretty good. 2 thin coats, Chaos bronze, going on the palette. Find just basically anywhere it fits. That works. We're going to dab most of it off, and then we're just going to start applying it over top of those parts that go those colors. We don't want super wet paint, right? Because we want it to only go where we put it. We don't want it to kind of saturate and fill any kind of the crevices or anything. So let's just dab this bell down. Love this technique though. Absolutely love it. Not much work at all to make it happen. And I think it just really adds a touch of depth to it. Kind of a nice little faux realism vibe on it. It is going to be a little bit challenging. We'll just do a little backflip. It's going to be a little bit challenging in certain spots to keep the bronze off the leather. And I think I mentioned it in another video. If I was to do this again, this would be a multi-part sub-assembly, right? Like this bell right here, I easily could have left this little detail off and attached it after the fact. Then I wouldn't have had to have been so careful. We could have gotten all the way around it, no problem, without any kind of interference. Let's see if we can pull it away without breaking it. It's working so far. And then right here at the top, since I can't get the sponge in there, just take a light brush, get it just the tip on it, and we're just gonna like kind of stipple to fill in some of those gaps up around the surface of it. That's the other aspect. The location of the camera now is basically zoomed in all the way. Nice, quick, effective. Just the tipple and the stipple. Yeah, buddy. All right, so let's just hit the rest of our bronze in the same way. Now, one thing I also like to do on certain models is I'll take something like a copper that has a bit more richness to the color of it, just because you get a lot better contrast with you know, something that's more rich against the verdigris. But I liked this color for it for sure here. Again, we left the other stuff unpainted, so that way we could just go right over top of it later, not have to worry about being too neat on that. We only have to be neat on the stuff that's already painted, your leathers and such. And maybe the two tones of the verdigris, like we talked about, maybe there's not enough showing to really be able to see the difference between the two tones. So might not have been worth the effort, but it definitely doesn't hurt it. Okay, well, it looks like we got a little bit of copper on there when I did not intend to. So what we're going to do is take a little airbrush thinner. We're going to gently dab that over top of that bronze that hit the leg. Let that sit for just a moment. Take another brush, a little stiffer, and voila, bronze is gone. That is the benefit of that satin coat, the varnish that we put on it. Without that varnish on it, that copper probably doesn't come up so easily. Again, just the tipple and stipple, Moonlit. Finish up here tonight. Then we're gonna have to go get the assets done for tomorrow's game. I forget who's playing, but I think I saw the lists are already submitted. Behind on up here. He did use purple early in the stream. Go back up a little bit there. Yeah, the purple was our filter for our blues to enhance the shadows, and then of course, same thing on those leathers. Just a touch of the purple into those leathers as well to give extra dimension. Okay, well those are done. Let's look at some metallics of another flavor, of another variety. And for this, I think that we're going to use a slightly different metallic. Let's see if I've got it here in the studio. There's a rich copper. There's an aluminum. Don't want either of those. And it looks like that might be all I have here. So we're just going to go back to the two thin coats. Again, my favorite metallics for basing things out. And I mean, we might actually do a couple of copper pieces on here too. A couple of copper pieces of something maybe on the door. But first let's finish off the copper, or the bronzings. It's nice, I've got a nice little barrier of fur from the other leather that was been painted. So we can just go right over top of that, doesn't matter. And there's so many leather straps and stuff on here too. That is the downside to having cooler models for Sigmar, is well, it's more stuff to have to paint. So what's going on with you, Luke? How's your day, brother?
Oh, just, you know, what was it? Probably about 9 hours of work.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. It's kind of nice actually, because days have been slow prior to this week.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You know, nothing like a slow day to make you appreciate the busy work days.
Oh yeah. Plus those paychecks.
Oh, you like paychecks?
Apparently I didn't there for about a month and a half. But no, my owner of the company I work at decided to buy a new business, so I'm bouncing between the two businesses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, same, like similar type of thing in both of them?
Well, the one is like glass shower enclosures, metal shelving, wood
Right,
shelving,
right.
stuff like that.
That's the one you initially got started with, right?
Right. The new one now is storefront. So all these windows at this lovely store.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that actually, now that you mention it.
Yep. You know, I got some crazy stories, but I'm not going to share one of these on stream
It's gonna
because
be one of those members only contents, huh? Hit them up
Yeah.
on the Hobby Goblins channel for that one. Might have to do one of these one night with you, showing how you paint up your Tyranids, man.
I wouldn't mind that. Nothing special, mostly slap chop, but added a couple little levels to it.
Well, I mean, I definitely hope people enjoy the content that we make here, but the last thing that I want to ever do is present anything that we're doing as if we're the best at it in the world, because let's be honest, we all have eyeballs on YouTube and we've all seen people like with golden demon pushes and all that, so like sometimes the things that are a bit easier to replicate, I think, are what people are going to want to see, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And just about everything that we do for army painting is just a couple of techniques. You learn the technique and you know 90% of what you need to know. Then like all you have to do from there is just make good decisions.
Yeah, I've come to actually like dry brushing. It's kind of fun and therapeutic.
Hey, that's fair. That is fair. There's a time and a place for it, for sure. There are definitely times, oh look, I missed more leather. There are times where it is the move. But there's also times where like I just want to do anything but dry brush. Of course, a lot of my favorite brushes are just so damn wacky. We've seen that in previous episodes too. Like the wild, like Don King hairbrush that I like to use for sporadic chipping on metallic models.
Mm-hmm.
I refer to it as my fine detail brush. It's just application from that. Yeah. Application at a much higher level, right? And frequently a lot less margin for error.
And definitely 100+ hours into a single model.
Oh, Adam's got that absolutely right. So I've probably mentioned it before, but I don't think I ever have any interest in being a golden demon painter. Right, most of the skill set that I've defined for myself is to the purpose of army painting. And I'm pretty happy there. You know what I mean? I'm pretty happy there. Let Cryface do all the high speed stuff. Or I I guess low speed stuff, as it were. He's actually wrapping up that demon prince here pretty shortly, maybe
Oh, nice.
by this weekend. I cannot wait to see that guy finished. Get that in there pretty quickly. All right, let's get into some other metallics. Surcoat's silver is your kind of your baseline here. I think it'll be bright enough too. So let's give her a go. Yep. As suspected, needs much more shaking. You know, more than the 0 shaking that I did. By that I mean. What's up, Bobbies? How you doing, man? Fun fact, when I stopped trying to make my paint jobs perfect, that's when I progressed the most as a painter. Try things, make mistakes, you can always repaint something. 100%. That's also where you're gonna define your personal style the most, right? In what way are you pivoting? In what way are you making those corrections? That's gonna define who you are, right? And if you're the type of painter that just wants to paint like everybody else, well, you know, there's ways to do that. But, you know, most of the people that you see paint, you know, at all levels, right, from your tournament, like your champs winners, all the way up to your golden demon winners, have got certain things that they do that's kind of become a signature for them. And I'm curious how many of those things were born out of having made a mistake the first time.
Different experimentation to figure out what works best for you. You know, finding those techniques for what you're trying to do.
Next FLG event I attend, I'm going to bring these challenge coins along with me. I'm not going to clean them up or anything. I'm just going to, like, here you go.
Here's some painted coins. Will they give me something?
All right, let's start pumping some silvers in where the silvers go. And we're going to use some of the Dirty Downs rust on them too. That right next to the bronze verdigris should look pretty cool. I got to see a sneak peek of some of those sisters that Bobby's working on. I think he's got them up in the Discord, so make sure you guys cruise over there and have a look. And if any of you guys are sitting at home tonight painting alongside with me, I'd love to see what you're working on. Throw it up in the Discord. Of course, any new people that might not be a part of the Discord, check the video comments. There is a nice saucy link right there to get you right inside. You get to kind of see what our collection of friends from all around the country are working on at any given time. Again, one of the coolest things about the 40K experience for me. Getting to meet all the new people. And getting to get all the different takes on what they're working on. Shadows here is going to be kind of a tricky process in terms of like determining what I'd like to do. I know I've preached in the past about, like, you know, throwing away your Nuln Oil and your Agrax, but I mean, not necessarily throwing it away, right? But removing it from your every paint job recipe. But there are times, especially working with silvers, that, like, you know, a little Nuln Oil in the recesses is the move. So we might go that route. you what though, these Sigmar models really do feel like painting hard mode. I mean, I can't say that for all the Sigmar models. Obviously, this is the only one I've ever painted. But these Gargants, I'll say, definitely feel like hard mode. I think the last couple of years, the way that we supported BEA was by sending them chainsword props painted up and branded out to their event and whatnot. And looking back, those are a lot easier. All right, already changed my mind. Purple's our shadow. It would be foolish for me not to leverage it on the silver. So that is what we're gonna do. There are gonna be a couple of spots this leather is gonna need to be touched up. I can already see. No, that's kind of expected though. You know, Two Thin Coats gets bragged on a lot for their whites, but really,
Don't cry.
their metallics are one of the things that I am most impressed with. The coverage you can get off of them and how smooth they lay down. The fact that it's actual metallic pigment, not mica, is pretty neat as well. Couldn't tell you whether that leads to a better result directly or not, but the fact that they're one of the few companies that uses actual metallic powder, you know, is worth mentioning. Posted skin and bone tones. Oh, gotta hit them with the bone tones. Very nice. Yeah, that looks rad, man. That's a really good start. Obviously, the photo is a little dark, so it's kind of hard to see the details in it, moonlit, but I definitely like what you're cooking with there.
Don't cry.
How do they compare to the Vallejo metallics? If you're airbrushing, absolutely Vallejo airbrush or metal color 100% of the time, right? 100% of the time. Where the metal color line from Vallejo can fall short is some of the paints are very thin and so can kind of be a little bit more difficult to brush paint with. So I think that's like where the two of them excel separately. Two Thin Coats, really good with a brush, takes extra work to get it to spray right. And then, of course, the opposite is true for the Vallejo metal colors. The Vallejo metal colors gold is also not very good. It's like a slightly yellow version of a rose gold rather than being a strong yellow gold. And for me, I like something like, you know, if I'm going to use gold, I want to have something that's got like a lot of color saturation to it. So something like these guys tend to do a little better for something like that. I'm not terribly sure what this is, so we're going to make it metallic. chains. Nice. William Payne's got some photos up of his finished Ricari as well. Excited to see those. Give me 1 second.
I love that skin on that.
Yeah, that is very cool. Oh yeah. Very nice, William. Metal bits. Yeah, I think we're going to keep these for steel and rust as well, just because I think the red is going to have better color play off the blue flesh. The red and brown from the rust, I mean. I know there's going to be some missing in various places, like all of the hardware that's attached to the door that his arm is made of, you know, some of the filigree on some of the other bits of details. So I'm not worried about those things right now at all, simply because there's still other painting that needs to be done around it. And that's one that I feel like it'll be easier to paint the surface details last. We talked about that a little bit ago, kind of the difference between the two. It's a little pendant hanging off of his foot right here. I'm also not sure we're going to do that yet, so we're going to let that be for a moment.
The necklace is a crystal or like a stone?
Give me a second to look at it, and we'll figure that out together. That's got a stone vibe to it, for sure.
I mean, it's huge. That would be a huge crystal.
Yeah. That it would, my friend. Okay, so those are looking pretty good. Running out of places on the wet palette. But let's take some of this Leviathan purple that I've still got in this cup here. And let's probably 3-to-1 water it. Take a fair amount out of there. But what we're going to do is we're going to just run some recess shading on certain parts of the silver. Get around all these little knuckles. Get around the filigree here. And then I think I'm going to take a lighter silver and a dry brush and loosely dry brush over top of it to knock down a little bit of the purple, but also add more of kind of a hammered feel to it. Like these guys aren't manufacturing pieces of metal, you know, very accurately or smooth and cleanly. So I think that'll add a lot of value to it. And we just want this paint loose enough that when I touch it down to the model, that it wants to run into those recesses. We got to be able to tell apart the different types of metallics. Or even where two metallics overlap. Also gives nice shadows within those deep scratches. One of these days I'm going to call for like a painting challenge from chat before the stream goes. And I just already am calling it that the painting challenge that I'm going to get first is to paint something without using purple. And that'll be the first day I disappoint chat.
First thing you're going to use is purple.
Like, I don't even know how to paint without purple. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean no purple? Is that a thing? People do that? Yeah, with the way that I use it and talk about it though, it's kind of a surprise that we didn't just name the art channel here on YouTube The Power of Purple. Maybe a missed opportunity, then they couldn't have told me I can't use it. I'm in the pin wash till you drop step at the moment. Very nice. Doing the rattlesnake pattern from my Kit Bash Sylph, is that how you say that? Slith?
Yeah, here's the what he's pen washing.
Oh yeah. Now is that an acrylic pen wash that you're using to get that done?
I like Moonlight's way of dealing with the purple question there.
What's that?
Not that you can't use purple, but you can only use fluorescent lilac purple.
Oh, that's fine. We'll work at that.
And Adam said, yeah, that's correct.
Very nice. Lots of times, if I have to pin wash something, especially a lot of something, I really like to use oils for it. But there are times that just acrylic is the way to go. Yep, I'm liking the direction that's going. So is this time change killing anybody else at the moment? I got up to come in here today and I was not ready to get out of bed. Not for the stream, obviously. I was in here several hours before that. But yeah, I felt it today.
Yeah, Dean, I have to agree. Monday was the worst, but not quite a month of the week.
All right, let's let that settle for a moment. Lots of metallic bits. Luke, what do you think that is on his chest right there? That door-shaped thing on his belly? It's kind of got vibes of a tombstone. It's kind of got vibes of like a headboard for a twin-size bed.
Let's get Chad over here looking at it too. So we're talking about old boy right here.
You got it. That's right.
I mean, I think you hit with the tombstone. It looks like straight up a tombstone to me.
Is that what chat is thinking as well? Proto J struggling too. Proto J brings up a question that I had too. So I thought before I started helping out around Counterspell here that 40K had to be like near the top in terms of expensive hobbies, right? Of course, there's things like cars, right? If you do like a bunch of like restoration or classic car sort of stuff,
oh yeah,
that's super expensive. Of course, guns and ammo and all that gets very expensive. So talking more along the lines of like game related things, right? I'm curious if golf is more expensive than something like Magic the Gathering, because Magic the Gathering is way more expensive than 40K to play it at the same way that we play 40K. Right?
So I know good golf clubs can be $500-600 a piece
Per club.
per club.
But then they last you quite some time.
Right.
Okay.
And that's like custom fit, like they're made for you at that point. Yeah, I think we got some agreeing that's a tombstone.
All right. Well, then we're gonna paint it up as a tombstone. We'll do some grays in that. Maybe try and do something cool with it.
And Magic is 10,000% more expensive to maintain due to card turnover. Yep. That's the biggest problem with all the card games and stuff is like every new set, here's 1,000+ cards.
Now, getting in here and pricing some Magic cards when people ask about them, It's crazy to me. It is absolutely crazy to me. Not crazy as in, what are you doing? You're a fool. Crazy just as in, like, a surprise. Okay, so let's address these metallics now. We're going to take, first of all, a nice small little dry brush, a dainty little thing. We're going to take some of that Too Thin Coats paint.
Yeah, Jay, I have to agree that it is a decent amount, but that's clubs, memberships, yeah. I mean,
Oh, wow.
that's a lot.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Well, I guess it's a good thing I don't like golf. Okay, make sure our brush has a little bit of moisture in it. And we don't need much silver on the palette here, so we're just gonna dab that a few times right there. Can we get it on the screen where you can see it? Nope, just trust me. It's a very small amount of silver. And then we're just gonna come back across, overwrite some of that purple. Mixture between dry brushing and stippling in here. It's not gonna have a big effect on it, really. But what we want to defeat more than anything else are the little bits of tide marks that are left when we applied that purple in the way that we did. The one good thing about the purple too is it does make it stand apart from that bronze a bit better.
Yeah, it did. Oh, welcome to Chad Dan.
What's up, Dan? So about the same as 40K. Lol. 40K is not that bad. Actually, I think golf wins in terms of expensive hobbies. I think that it beats 40K itself as well. Can you imagine a country club for 40K?
I don't know. Look at this room, though, for 40K.
Well, this is a fringe, right?
Yeah.
This is the combination of a bunch of people's armies, right? If this was all one person's army, well, they haven't eaten a real meal in years, right? It's been all ramen noodles, you know, for the entire decade. And then all the other stuff, like all the camera equipment, well, that's a different hobby too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we're throwing like 3 or 4 hobbies into one room.
Mm-hmm. And at some point, we're going to get good at one of them.
We're gonna have fun trying at least.
Yeah, I know that's right. I know. You know, in many ways, a lot of this stuff, you know, both stream related and not. You know, and I don't mean to like be too dramatic or anything here, but in many ways, it's been a lifesaver for me, right? Everybody goes through some things from time to time. Everybody has their struggles from time to time. And the number one thing that's helped me keep my head straight through the worst of my experiences over the past couple of years has been that time spent cultivating relationships with the Goblins, traveling to events, meeting people, engaging in art projects and collaborations with different artists. Like, those things have not only just kept me sane, but really, really enriched me. And implored me too, because it costs a lot of money.
I was actually going to hit that point. So back to what, like when Jay was talking about the golf there. So if you're in a tournament mindset, 6K in that time period for going to tournaments and stuff is very easily done.
It's true. No, it's true. If you are a traveling player, right? There was a point that I was traveling once a month. Before YouTube started, every month I was out of town. And I've been all over the country. Most of the places we've driven to, right? And driving is rarely cheaper than flying. You know, you remember, Luke did most of the driving for us to get out to Vegas from Florida because we're absolute absolute lunatics, right? And it would have been cheaper to fly.
It definitely would have been.
When we lined up everything and we rented a vehicle, right? We split the gas, we, stopped for inexpensive food, but, well, that was 4 days on the road to get there. Just
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
3.5, 4 days on the road. That's a lot of meals, that's a lot of snacks, that's a lot of gas.
I thought it was what, like 46 total hour drive, and that's not counting stops and everything.
Yeah. I think it was 42 without stops. And
42,
I think we
okay.
made it in about 46.
That's right.
But yeah. So when you look at it through that lens, I think you're right. I think it can get right up there, right up there with golf in terms of the cost. Okay, just wrapping up the last little highlights in the silver, then we're going to rust some of it out. Cool, pretty happy with that. The other question that I've been kind of racking my brain on here, which we're not going to get to tonight, I want to have plenty of time to consider it, but the thumbnails, right? If you look at your normal nail, it's very close to your flesh color,
Right.
right? And of course, results may vary, right? But you get a little bit more of the blood flow that's visible in different parts of your nails. Now these nails, I guarantee you this guy's never had a pedicure.
Oh, no.
Right, me and him are in that same school of just don't look at my feet and everything are fine, right? Everything is fine. So that does create a good opportunity for more things like yellows and greens and really kind of gnarly looking stuff. But how is that going to play into the blue flesh tones, right? How does that work out organically, right? So we might try a couple of different things before we find something that we like for it, but it is already on my mind. All right, how about some of this, guys? How about some of that? What do you know about that?
Oh, I love this stuff.
Okay, you know how I know it's not shaking enough? There we go.
There it
Now
is.
we're getting there. Now we're making a little noise with it.
No agitator noise.
I've made the mistake of doing the finances for my 40K expenditures. Yeah, kind of like telling the significant other how much you actually spent on 40K. Yeah, no, definitely. I probably could have, quit 40K and picked up drugs and saved money. Yeah. And I'm talking about designer drugs. You know what I mean? Flown in from Dubai, hidden away in a chocolate bar or something. I don't know. It can get a little crazy. It definitely can. So we just need the smallest amount of this. That's about twice what I hoped for there, and it's maybe 2 or 3 drops. I maybe dropped 1K on 40K a year. Okay. I respect your ability to budget. How many events does that shake out to for you? Because I know that for me, going to a major event that is outside of my home state is easily $1,000. Taking our same sponge brush here, we've got enough dipped in there that we can just start dabbing into the silver and creating little spots where that rust is gathered.
Yeah, Steven, that's probably a safe bet.
All right, now we've got leverage. Next time, we need something out of Steve, we're just be all right, I'm gonna tell the lady what 40K costs if you don't if you don't come stream with us. And what we want from this is we want You know, just little mottled areas, right? M-O-D-D-L-E-D, not mottled. Or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, I don't know. Spell it however you want. Just what, you know, go with what I mean. That's the best way. Some of these we're going to do rustier than others to also give nice variations from one silver panel to the next as well. So like this elbow armor, for example, make it pretty rusty. And then the one on the shoulder, we're going to kind of go back to a little lighter. This is all like kind of easy stuff for me, right? Like metallics and like weathering them. That is definitely like wheelhouse sort of stuff for me. Also love the way this Dirty Downs looks with those purple undertones. Okay, now to add a little bit of variance, I'm going to take this junk brush again, saturate the bristles in water, grab some of this Dirty Downs onto the wet palette, thin it down a whole lot, and then we're going to drop this in some of the recesses as well. The dilution of your Dirty Downs is going to change the way in which it takes shape on the model. Let me show you what I mean. Take a moment, of course, for it to dry down, but we're going to follow this same line here that outlines that bronze. So you can still see the purple underneath it, but it's going to look a lot less like the purple application, and instead it's just going to be tinting this rust that's going in here a little bit more efficiently. do especially well for the chains with it being really, really light like that too. Another thing you can do with the dirty downs, I can get in here with a brush, get to the bottom of the bottle where there's a sediment down there. And that's, of course, that pigmentation that's in this. And if you don't know about the product, dirty downs oxidizes as it dries. So the thickness of it, of the water, and the dilution of the pigment will create very drastically different effects. So just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about here, where I don't have it on the model, here's some on some white paint. We're going to paint that there. We're going to see what happens with it just by it drying. All right, then I'm also going to take the bottle here. We're going to go at the back end of this junk brush here. I'm going to drag this on the bottom. All right, you see this gloopiness right here? Let's put this here on it. Let's water that down with all that extra gloopiness in it. Let's see how it dries. And we're going to do the same thing again. And we're going to put it on here thick and then not water it down. So, you know, Eric, when we first tried out this project, you know, the way you could tell he was impressed by it is he insulted it, said, oh, it's just talent in a bottle. But I think that what you'll find is that there are so many different ways to utilize the product itself that to get something consistent definitely takes an acquired, you know, skill. You definitely got to, you know, get used to using the product in order for it to behave the way you want it to every single time. Another good thing to know about this product here is that it does not have a hardener, so it will reactivate as it dries as well. Okay, we're going to let that test there. We're going to see what that does here in a few moments. Let's have a closer look, though, at some of these metallics as we've, now that they're rusted out. Chains right here. That bronze bell looking pretty sharp. Over here, you got a bit of the bronze, a bit of the rusty steel. And again, color theory, the blue tones of that skin next to the rust on that armor, the warm and cool playing off of each other is very, very nice. That neutral silver behind it actually is taking on a little bit of warmth from the existence of that rust as well. All right, let that settle in there. Oh, what's going on, Rob? Last I checked, Shalaxi was tied for Emperor's Children. I put a poll up on the page to determine what people were interested in seeing next. So if you wanna weigh in and lean that in one direction or another, make sure you go get that vote in. Clearly, it will not be an entire Emperor's Children army. All right, what we'll probably do with it is something similar to what we did with the Votan by painting up a couple of models to get the recipe down for what the paint job is going to look like. Is there an autofocus setting on that rig? There is, Rob, but what we found was that it so slowly auto-adjusts to it that it spends as much time out of focus as it does in focus. So that's kind of the downside. Now, we do have a certain magician who would probably be terrified to hear me mentioning that I'm going to tell his girlfriend about how much 40K costs, who could help us out of the kindness of his heart at some point, figure out a better solution. But yeah, I mean, for right now, we just work with what we can. I mean, of course, I'm joking. Steve has done a tremendous amount for us on the channel. So I would never hang him out to dry like that.
Hey, I appreciate you getting those measurements, Adam. Not what I was guessing by looking at that picture.
Yeah, it's a nice little working tray right there. Hey, thanks, Rob. Yeah, there's a good bit of blending and everything to get it to where it was at, and then of course I think it really got set off tonight when we put the filter on it. And what feels good is a lot of the big portions of the model are done-ish, right? Of course, some touch-ups and stuff as we go. But, you know, that leather was quite an undertaking. The flesh, quite an undertaking. The two of those things combined is probably about 40 to 50%. Probably more than that. Probably like 60, 70% of the fine detail work, right? The repetitive work. Everything else is going to be a series of small tasks that drives it home. And like as far as coverage, it's like 80+% of the model coverage are those two things. So now we get to kind of meander around, pick out the little details that we want to work with and add it to it as we go and use that information to do our math for what colors to use for the different things. There's something to be said about planning out a paint job ahead of time and knowing my colors are this for the ropes, this for the bones, this for the leathers, right? But I find that even when I do that, that there's audibles that I have to make during the painting process that changes the plan up. So, much like Bobby was mentioning earlier, right? It's fine to do some of that, right? It's fine to do some planning and all of that, but don't let your plans dictate exactly how it has to go. Approach it with some flexibility, right? React to the model and let it kind of take you on a journey as you go. Right? It really opens up the door of possibilities for you. One thing I think we might add to the leather though, is I think the model is calling for some greens, some mold and some algae and some things along those lines. And there are certain spots on the leather I might be able to work a little bit of greens into it for that effect. Keep in mind snowy environment, right? So lots of moisture, right? Lots of moisture, like kind of soaking up all of it. That's why we went with those dark leathers like that as well. I like to think that they probably are in a constant state of saturation, right? And so the idea that some of that moisture that's gathered on there in between freezes, you know, could very well, you know, take on some moldiness as well.
Nah, he's looking good, man.
What's up, JC? 21st Legion Wargaming. Of course, that's who this is being done for, guys. JC is the one, you know, maybe not solely responsible, but he is the guy that I know for it for sure. So as far as I'm concerned, solely responsible for the battle to end Alzheimer's and all the fantastic things that they have done through that charitable foundation. So again, thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to take part, JC. Sure do appreciate it. As much as we like doing commissions and like pulling a little side income from it and everything, sometimes it's just really nice to be able to give back, right? So many little ropes. All right, so we think that's a tombstone, huh?
Yep.
Let's make it a tombstone then, huh? Let's do it. I can tell my wet palette needs a little bit of hydration. I want to figure out a setup that'll allow me to do some of the prop work that we do. I've got that big power claw at the house that, like, you know, you can open and close the claws on it. And it is a girthy boy. And I'm not sure in the studio space kind of small here for the paint stuff. Not sure how I could get that to work in here. But something I think I'm going to want to try and figure out.
You know, as far as doing videos of the...
Yeah, at least a couple of them, right? Because that is a really fun, non-traditional project for our hobby. And we've had the good fortune of being able to do a bunch of them. So, you know, being able to kind of share that process with everybody would be kind of fun as well. We've got a plasma pistol. We've got Mortarian's lantern. We've got, I believe, a Space Wolf axe, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's sweet.
I've got Power Claw, and then of course the chainsaws. So those are the stuff that I've got at the house that still need to get painted. Some of them will get added to that weapon rack behind us. Others might get hung in the shop in various places.
Yeah, I just see like the scale of those projects because the size versus a mini. Definitely gonna have a little bit different of a camera view for that one.
Definitely. Like it might be something that we have to paper off the game table.
That's what I was just thinking,
use
actually.
that overhead,
Zoom in with that overhead right there.
which isn't going to produce as high fidelity of an image, but it might still get the job across. And some good quality photography, you know, overlaid into it. I think likely be a better pre-recorded project than it would be a live project. I wanted to paint tonight, but I'm going to watch you work instead. All right, well, hey, you know, vicariously live through me. I am good with that. I'm happy to have you here. So let's go ahead and just hit a quick dry brush on some of the metallics to bring some of that silver back. And then I think we're going to paint up a tombstone. What I'm trying to get here is like the surface stuff, like the little rivets. All right, that looks nice. Let's paint a tombstone, guys. So, grays, right? That could also be a good spot for some of that moss to acquire, or will you grab that for me up there, please, sir? I believe that one is the moss. Excellent. Another product by Dirty Downs. We're definitely going to use this somewhere in the project. Maybe tonight, maybe in the next video. Well, typically, if I was going to do something like this, I would want to go with kind of a blue-gray. But obviously we've got so much blue on here that we're not going to go that route. So we're going to take this. Has got a little bit more of a greenish to it. This is Ranger Cloak. And there's just a slight hint of green to it. Let's base it out with this. And then build up from there. These fancy army painter brushes are doing their damnedest to look like a tooth and coat or an artist opus brush, but I know the difference. Question for chat. What is everyone's favorite brush that they use? Bonus points if it's not one of the big players. We can just do full coverage on this. This is also more brush painting than I have done in quite some time. You can take a look at the other videos from the other channel and see what I mean on that. Typically, I'm able to get so much done with an airbrush and with filters. You know, but like all of the leather was brush painted here. Whereas normal me would have done that differently. with this on the wet palette, but I'm only going to use it for a minute, so it doesn't really matter. I just put it down on whatever was in front of me at the time. But in case anybody's wondering, there is no rhyme or reason I didn't go wet palette with it. Matter of fact, Luke, if I can have you do me a favor, best part about having a producer is I get to put him to work. Can I have you go ahead and refresh that paper for me? I'm a messy wet palette user, so I probably changed my paper more so than a lot of other folks, simply for that reason. Golden maple brushes have been great for me. Enjoyed the Artist Opus. Once the end phrase, toss it, grab a new one. Now you must be talking about, yep, my 100 pack. You got for Amazon for like $8. Hey, there's a place for those, Dan, for sure. If you guys don't know what he's talking about, that's exactly what we got here. Nice little throwaway brush, right? And this was a 50 pack to start with. So you can see I've definitely gotten my use out of it. It's also the same brush that we used to create this Joker here. Make sure we get a nice coverage on here. Now, the furs, we're gonna do grays. This might be a good gray to use for that. We're gonna let that tombstone dry. I'm gonna go ahead and come back in while we wait. I'm gonna grab a little bit of this brighter silver here. And we're gonna use it just to add a little bit more detail to the silvers. Especially with something like this rust, the edges of the silver are going to constantly come in contact with things, and so rust buildup is going to be a lot less frequent. So we're going to do kind of just like a quick chunky edge highlight on these pieces here. Going for a similar thing that we were going for with the dry brush. The dry brush just didn't take as well as I would have liked for it to, so we'll just do it with more control this way. I also used the same silver on the dry brush, so going with a brighter silver also helps. Can't see where you're painting. Hey, me neither, Rob. Me neither. It's part of the challenge. Yep, getting used to the new location for the camera, testing it out. But by and large, I definitely think it's an improvement for where it was. Just not sure yet if this is its final form, you know?
Yeah, I think you're going to just have to keep testing it out with different size models too, because that's also part of it.
It's true. It's true. Like this big boy here is very different from like painting a character model. And being that our zoom is basically, we're zoomed all the way in for something this size, does concern me a little bit when it comes time to paint something smaller, that I can get it on screen big enough. And now I know I've preached about not using good brushes for things like metallics or contrast. But you see, I'm keeping all of this paint right there at the tip of the brush. I'm not letting it anywhere near the ferrule. So we're pretty safe with it right now. But typically, especially if I'm doing full coverage on something, we're gonna use a different brush, probably a synthetic of some sort. Yeah, I mentioned golf earlier. I'm not a fan of golf, but I will tell you that one of my favorite video games of all time was that Tiger Woods golf. Or I don't know if any of you guys remember Hot Shots Golf, right? That was like early golf game. PS1, maybe PS2.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That was more fun than it had any business being.
Now, as far as arcades, that Golden Tee.
Golden Tee was fun too. I actually enjoyed that one as well. Those were drinking days though, so I enjoyed most of the things that I did just because I was drinking.
Yeah, that's true.
I can say I've never played Golden Tee sober. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, cool. Let's get this out of the way. Let's recollect these paints that are in the palette. That's the other thing you'll see that I'll do is that as my project progresses, I get more and more paints getting gathered up on the table in front of me, rather than putting them back on the shelf and having to remember which shade of brown or gray it might have been. Perfect. Thank you very much, Luke. What I like about these big coins too is I can use them to kind of smooth out some of these wrinkles. They're heavy enough and kind of wide enough. Excellent. So let's get in here.
And by the end of this stream, you're going to have a lot of secrets for Steven.
You guys have made me a believer. I finally pulled the trigger on the 3-pack of Dirty Downs Rust, Moss, and Verdigris. Just don't tell how much it costs. We'd never tell her. Why would we do that? Also, I'm going to need you in here to fix this camera. I'm moving the stream to my TV. I'm here, but just can't chat. That's all good, man. I bought the cheapos from Michaels that handle all of my oils. Yeah, a good, cheap synthetic. The more disposable it is, the better for a synthetic a lot of times. You guys have heard me talk about it in the past, but one of my all-time favorite brushes, this guy right here. And you can see this one is well used. And maybe it wasn't used very well. Maybe it was used very irresponsibly. But it has been a workhorse. This is the Tamiya Pro, right? And as beat up as it is, look at that tip. Look at that tip. It still comes to a nice, sharp point. Not as good for edge highlighting, with side brush edge highlighting, I should say. But it is very, very good for doing small line work. The only problem with it is there's not a lot of body to the bristles, so it doesn't hold a ton of paint. Yeah, Cryface taught me that. At least I didn't have paint on mine when I did, though.
Very true.
Cryface, for those that don't know, is our resident paint licker. He taste tests all the new paints that we bring around. He hasn't got to travel with us much, man. That's why it was so cool that he did make it out to Vegas with us when we did that road trip.
Oh, definitely. That was a good hang.
And I'm not real sure exactly what I'm doing with the tombstone yet. So what I'm just doing is like shaping it right now. I want to get the idea of the surface that I've got to deal with and how I might be able to do something interesting. Also using a pretty watered down paint, pretty loose. So it's also hitting it with a bit of transparency. So let's just do some interesting sort of striations. Maybe give it like an idea of like some sort of marbling pattern. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. That is the thing about the nature of the details on all of these smaller little add-on pieces, is that there's very few things that I can just paint a color and it'd be fine. Just about everything on here I have to do something interesting with, because the additional details are so interesting themselves that if I just paint it like a color or two and slap a wash on it, an edge highlight, it's gonna be really very boring. So, again, opportunity to try stuff. We're experimenting here. And if you see me on stream, that's what I'm doing. I'm experimenting. He licked it! Okay, well, if we want that to give the idea of marble at all, we're gonna have to work another color in there. I know there's a lot of blue on the model. But this Faust blue is like a really dark gray blue. So let's see how this looks. I'm gonna shake it more than that, Luke. Let's see how this looks as maybe a little line work color. And then I want to drop some moss on this thing, for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm probably going to take off after you get done with that tombstone.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming in and hanging out for a bit, absolutely.
No problem at all. But, you know, morning shift comes too soon.
Yeah, I don't believe in that stuff. Okay. Now, in order for this to be believable, I have to get teeny tiny lines. And there's a big old handful of dudes in my way. Some of these are going thicker than I wanted them to. So we might just come back, thin them out with another. Thin them out with another pass of that little gray. Because that looks like Duke. And if you can't see, if the camera's not dialed in, we're kind of doing like overlapping lightning bolts. Is kind of a good way to describe what the attempt is here. See, garbage at the moment. Let's see if we can make something out of it. If not, again, paint it again. No big deal. So let's come back in with that gray we were using the first time, see if we can thin some of these out. And what we're going to do is try and paint directly beneath the lines. One of our guys in the club has got a really cool technique for doing marbling using a Brillo pad. So not something it probably wouldn't really work for something along these lines. This might be too small for that technique.
Yeah, you'd have to mask a lot. So you still use an airbrush with the Brillo pad, or?
I think so. I say Brillo, I mean steel wool.
Oh, same difference almost. Finer than Brillo pad, but yeah.
And that steel wool is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
That was the thing when he told me what he was doing. I was like, ooh, that's brave. But then he actually had a little video of it in action. It was pretty cool.
All right.
All right, and then we're just gonna add little bits of stippling for texture to kind of fill up in between. It will look better as soon as the brush strokes are a little less obvious. You know, because those brush strokes are just telling us, hey, look at this paint. Look, I'm holding this guy the same way he's holding those dudes in his hand. Mm-hmm. Gotta show him who's boss, man. You're not so giant now, are you? Okay, so let's try something else. Let's try a little of this Trooper White. That's the warm white. Be right back, chimichanga time. I'm so glad you live close. Easily bring me a chimichanga. Easily do it. Again, just the tip in it. So we can get really, really small lines here. It's starting to look a little bit better. It is going to need some sort of wash to give some color into the recesses. But what actually might do pretty well for this is a finish of something like an apothecary white. Something to somewhat unify the colors and make the drastic difference stand out just a little bit less. We'll see here in a moment. Progress. This to me just kind of feels like try hard stuff. And I say that because I'm really trying hard, man. All right, we're gonna go a little bit deeper into the bristles with the paint this time so we can catch some edge highlighting here. And this might look a little bit more like cracks than it does like marbling. But, you know, our end goal isn't necessarily marbling. Our end goal is looks cool. So that's all we have to accomplish. I don't love it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't love it. I feel like it's a study I would have had to do a lot more on to get it where I want it to be. So we're gonna keep experimenting as we go. Do I have an apothecary white on hand? I do. I do. And we're just going to fully saturate this surface. And while it's still wet, I'm just going to take some of that original gray, stipple it around to kind of obscure some of the lines. So it's kind of like wet blending, as that contrast on the surface is going to, you know, kind of start blending things out in different and various ways. And although I don't yet love it, it looks a lot better. I need to see what that's going to look like when it dries. See what that means, guys. Stand up, stretch it out. So few things left to do, yet so many. Sure could use a chimichanga.
Chimichanga does sound good.
Look, I knew today was gonna be a crazy day. You know, opening up the shop, being here literally until stream got started, going through stream, you know, so a nice little 10-hour day. So I thought ahead, and I did make some taco meat last night, ate some tacos at like 2 a.m. and then had the taco meat put aside. So I had a quick, easy meal when I got home this evening. So, see what I mean? It doesn't look great. I need to do more to it to figure it out. I might even drop like some brown wash in that around some of those recesses or around some of the detail. And then I think that we're gonna lean on the moss getting in there and interacting with it and being the eye catch, right? That all kind of being just the background effectively for what we're gonna do for it for here. It's a fairly small and insignificant piece. However, the grays over top of the blues also don't stand up enough. So if I can get like a really vibrant green within it, then that like will kind of draw more attention to it and let it stand out a bit more. Dry blood on the tombstone? I mean, maybe. There's definitely gonna be some blood on here, you know? There definitely is. Tombstone might not be a bad spot for it. Definitely gonna bloody up those corpse pieces for sure. The more I look at it, the more I really do like the purple underneath those big muscle groups. Right there, especially under that belly. You turn it kind of down where his feet are facing the camera a bit more, you kind of see it a bit more so. But just that really added the roundness to it, you know? Since me and that guy have the same body type, I wanted to accentuate it, you know, very well. But I'd also like to get this done in 1 or 2 more streams at max, right? I don't want it to stretch too far on beyond that because there are multiple things I want to do. We are pushing 10 o'clock tonight already. So what I'll likely do is wrap up the tombstone to where I'm fairly happy with it. And then when I come back, I'll have the wood bits that I have yet to figure out. I'll have the fur, I'll have the ropes, and then the other small details before I get to the hammer and the bones. So I'll be doing some painting, of course, between now and Thursday, and of course from Thursday, between Thursday and Tuesday, and I'll keep you guys up to date on the individual processes that I'm doing, you know, so that way, even if I'm not painting it on stream, you can still kind of follow along. But I'm pretty happy with where it's heading. Even the things I'm not terribly happy with on it, as a whole, I'm pretty happy with it. And I've been posting some pictures, and I know there's quite a few people right now that are hoping to get their hands on it at BEA. So hopefully doing this also adds value to that event, even if it's just a small amount. You know, that would feel really nice. And of course, I would have, that's not me speaking directly for me, that is me speaking on behalf of all of the Hobby Goblins, because everything that we've kind of accomplished as a collective has been just that, has been as a collective, right? You know, had I been traveling by myself to events and meeting people and doing all of that, we wouldn't have had nearly as many opportunities put in front of us as we have had. So shout out to the guys in the green and purple. You know, if you see one at an event, you know, go say hello and introduce yourself if you haven't already met, or put a hug on their neck if you have. All right, let's see here. Oh, well, that is still wet. A little bit of white on this dry brush, and we're just gonna kind of stipple around, give it some more texture. Getting most of it off right there on that paper. So I think that's one of the things that's bugging me about it, is simply the fact that like the lines are so prevalent. Yeah, that actually worked rather well. And sometimes it is just tiny little things that make a huge difference. Luke, thank you again for coming in, brother. Great to see you. Wonderful surprise this evening. I didn't expect to see you at all. So, no, definitely appreciate you. Drive safe. Have a great day at work tomorrow, brother.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good night.
All right, same deal. You know, I'm shaking the dickens out of it, but I still don't hear the agitator moving yet. That means it is still just fully encased in the bottom of this pot. Maybe a little tap, maybe a little well-timed aggression, minor violence, you know. Still not working, but hey, we're gonna keep at it. Okay, see all this gunk around the rim there? We want to get that worked back into it. So let's grab one of these hyper disposable brushes. Today, it'll be a stir stick. We're gonna push all of that sediment right back down in there. And then I'm gonna just dig into the bottom to get that agitator loose. Add in a couple of Who's Your Daddies just for good measure. But this, you can really see all this chunky sediment. You want that to be mixed in there pretty well. And so this is likely, if this works the way I want it to, and it looks pretty decent, then this will likely be the same way that we add those bits of greens to the leather, or maybe even some of the wood panels that exist in there. And we are not going to use a good brush for it. All right, I want to see how that dries down before I put it on the model. That should get much more vibrant as it settles, so we're going to give that a minute. Talk about some stuff we've got coming up. Of course, you guys know, like we talked about, Emperor's Children box this weekend. We are fortunate in the fact that we've got none other than the Mark Perry coming in on Saturday to reveal that codex with us, show off that game. And kind of talk you through what Emperor's Children looks like. Time permitting, we're also going to be looking to make a couple of short videos about a couple of the top detachments in the Emperor's Children, and kind of the overall, much like we did with that Space Wolf Dan video. If you guys are just finding us for the first time and checking out the video, we are Hobby Goblins, right? You're going to find all of our game-related play on Hobby Goblins website, or the Hobby Goblins YouTube. This channel here, Gob Ross and Friends, is just an extension of that group. So if you want to see some saucy gameplay, well, that's going to be the place to find it. And we do stream those games Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday night. So 3 times a week we're getting games going on in the studio, and we are looking to start rolling out some of these tactics videos for some of our favorite armies. You can go check out our very first offering where Space Wolf Dan discusses the Champions of Rust, but more specifically, what characters work best for each enhancement within that Champions of Rust detachment. A lot of fun to make the video. And again, Dan did a great job, knocked it out of the park. So definitely go check those things out if you haven't already. Of course, we'd appreciate the sub on both of these channels if both of these channels have something that you do enjoy. Make sure you do like this video here as well. You know, that'll help us with the algorithm. We have been growing pretty well, I would say. This is week number 2 of streams. We did those first 2 streams last week. And as we sit right now, we have just peaked 220 subscribers on this account. Again, so huge thank you to you guys who have tuned in. Hit that subscribe button, like buttons on these videos, so on and so forth. That's going to be huge in helping us grow this thing out. Yeah, Dan is definitely that's where he belongs. You know what I mean? Making those shorts are hilarious. And he does an absolutely great job with those. Man, why didn't somebody tell me I was muted? I had to say goodbye to Luke off the mic, so apologize on that, guys. But yeah. So this is where we're going to leave it off tonight. We've got that stone going in there. It's really laying down the way I want it to, right? And if it gets a little bit more vibrant on the green, that's just even better. But let's see how close can I get to it and get good detail. So you can barely see the line work that I did in the background, and it just adds extra texture to the piece. I think it actually worked out better than I thought it was. Yeah, I leave for 10 minutes and Hosen is talking to himself. See, Luke, I needed you, man. I needed you. So my thoughts for the rest of the colors are wood, like the bell here, like the panels hanging off the side of them here, the wood in the bracer right there as well. All of those are going to have influences of that green too, to scatter that around the rest of the model. We're going to be turning to yellows for things like the bone. We're going to do, of course, a nice bone color, but we're going to work details from browns with a yellow hint, where we had browns with a red on the leathers, right? That's going to give an extra kind of variation. We're going to be doing gray across those the pelt up top there, and then and then the ropes themselves are going to be like a cream with just a touch of yellow as well. So that should give us good color theory around the entire model, where nothing jumps out too crazy, right? Everything is kind of complementary of those things that it's nearby, but at the same time, it's not, one note on the colors. That we do have multiple different ways to experience the model. I imagine in our next session, I should be able to knock out all of the ropes. I should be able to knock out all of the wood, likely even the fur and these bones up top, which is going to then leave us with the mallet, and then of course, getting all of our detail into the face where we want it. I definitely am very happy with tonight's progress. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys dig what we got cooking here. More importantly, hopefully it inspires you to do something cool, creative, and new to you. Don't be afraid to fail. All you gotta do is just try it. If it doesn't work, well, you got one step closer to learning a new thing. So thank you guys again for tuning in for another episode of Hobby Pants right here on Gob, Ross and Friends. If you like the content, be sure to hit the like button. If you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing. We would absolutely appreciate that support. And if you've got friends that you think might enjoy this as well, please, by all means, bring them to the party. We'd love to meet new people as we continue upon this journey here. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll be back here Thursday. So until next time, keep your pants on.